episode 17 of the Busted Limes podcast. I'm your host, Paresh Maharaj, in what I hope to be the first of 2 episodes that I'll be releasing this month, just to make up for our last month not having any episodes. For this episode, we are jumping back into our tiering of the MCU, and for this episode, we will be covering everything from Infinity War all the way to the end with Far From Home. Just as a reminder, since it's been a while, our tiering system ranges from platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. And yeah, that's really it for as far as an intro goes. So let's just go ahead and jump right back into this. All right, so we're starting with Infinity War, huh?
Yep, jumping right into it. The beginning of the climax of the MCU.
My God. So, where? How did you first see this movie? Because this was
in theaters opening night. I mean, like, and I'll talk about this later when we get to Endgame. I saw Infinity War and Endgame opening night in theaters. To this day, those are probably 2 of the best in-theater experiences I've ever had, because it's the kind of insane fanboy energy you can only get in an MCU movie. People were cheering, people were crying. I mean, it was like... Infinity War was like going to a sports game where your team is up 23-0 and then the entire home team dies at halftime. That is the exact sequence of emotions that occurred during watching that movie.
Oh yeah, definitely. This is the closest to what I think it felt like seeing the ending of Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in a previous episode with, the Russo brothers saying they wanted Thanos to be this generation's Darth Vader. I think they succeeded, because, I mean, pretty much everything Thanos did in this movie has made its way into, the zeitgeist.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And not to be filmed Twitter on main, but yes, zeitgeist is a word I now use to describe movies, somehow. But yeah, I mean... So many of his lines are iconic. I mean, getting Thanos is an expression now.
Oh my God. Yeah, he has definitely reached the villain lexicon right up there with Darth Vader, if you ask me. Because right from the get-go, when he first spells out his philosophy, I just start scouring Facebook and just seeing, like, okay, so which one of my friends are willing to kill me just for a chance to...
Right?
a chance to actually maybe save the world, because...
Right.
Yeah. Do you even want to get into the flaws or a critique of Thanos' philosophy, or nah?
I don't want to get into critiquing the philosophy specifically, because ultimately Thanos is a fucking psychopath.
Right.
Like, at the end of the day, I have more of an issue with the Thanos did nothing wrong crowd than I do with Thanos' writing itself, in Infinity War at least. Because, like, if nothing else, I feel like they got kind of shut up by Endgame.
Right.
I mean... At the end of the day, I mean, there are people who still, like, love Darth Vader. I don't have a problem with people loving Thanos, like, the way they love the Joker. I mean, at the end of the day, he's become so ingrained into pop culture that we can even raise that as a question. When the first Avengers movie came out, unless you were, a very avid comic reader, you had no fucking idea who Thanos was.
Right.
I mean, one thing I want to say before we get into the actual, like, meat and bones of this movie is that it's kind of amazing in hindsight that the MCU was built almost entirely of the shoulders of characters that people didn't care about when their movies came out. Right. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, and Black Widow. I mean, people love the Hulk already, but, like, those 5 were what you built your franchise on, and you went with Thanos as your eventual big bad?
Yeah.
The guy that, like... Even comic book fans were kind of like, really, that's where they're going with this? I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's so interesting to talk about Infinity War now, because the movies had come such a long way to the point where it did feel like an inevitable success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, shit, you could just, you don't even have to name all those characters that you just named. You could have just said Guardians of the Galaxy. They made a movie about the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Well, like I said in the Ant-Man review, like, once they made Guardians of the Galaxy what they made it, I was like, okay, they can do whatever they want, and I'll have faith in them to at least make it enjoyable. They don't need to go back to the well with all those old characters. I mean, not to, get too much into this, but it's amazing to see them do that, and on the other hand... DC can't even make an enjoyable Superman movie.
Lord, that's an episode for that's a discussion for another episode. You want to actually get into the movie now?
Yeah, sure. Well, we could talk about a movie in the episode that, is specifically for talking about that movie. I don't know what the fuck kind of operation you're running here where a podcast is supposed to stay on topic, but sure, I'll humor you.
Okay, sure. So, right from the get-go, right at the beginning of this movie, it did really lures you into that sense of uncomfort because it doesn't start with the fanfare with the pages flipping. You hear a distress signal over the opening.
Yeah, a distress signal played by the wonderful Sir Kenneth Branagh, making his what's the opposite of illustrious? Lack of
delustrious?
I guess return to the Thor movies by heralding the doom of all the Asgardian refugees.
Yeah.
There is no way for me to make that sound funny.
Yeah.
I mean, we open with Ebony Maw. Yes, all of Thanos' Doom Squad, or whatever you want to call them, have names. Mm-hmm. No, none of them are called by names in the movie. Yes, I will call them by their names in this review. Pull up IMDb if you're confused.
Or just play Strike Force.
Yeah. Not sponsored.
Exactly.
If Strike Force is listening, hit us up.
Yeah.
So it opens with Ebony Maw walking over the corpses of Asgardian civilians while heralding the impending arrival of Thanos as a savior. That shit's fucking dark.
Yeah, and just to make it even better, he kills Loki. I don't know if you could hear my quotation marks that I put around kills, but they're there.
No more resurrections, only bullshit timeline shenanigans.
Exactly. And then, but that's after he beats the Hulk.
Yeah. If you want to establish how strong a new character is, have him beat up the guy who was previously considered the strongest character. Not going into the fact that Hulk loses a fight in every movie he's in, but, seeing the Hulk get manhandled by Thanos when he's not even actively using an Infinity Stone, if that didn't put the fear of at least one god into you, I'm not sure why you're watching Infinity War.
Yeah.
That's another thing I want to touch on briefly. I know we keep going in circles. If you were one of those people who was worried about going into Infinity War Endgame because, I'm going to be confused, I haven't seen the previous movies, can I go in without seeing the movies? Shut the fuck up. You don't turn on the season finale of a TV show and ask, well, if I haven't seen the previous 14 episodes, will I know what's going on? No, you won't. It's a series fucking finale. Of course, I'm just going to skip ahead to the criteria. No, Infinity War isn't a standalone movie, and it shouldn't be. It is the beginning of a culmination. If it was a standalone, it would be failing at what it set out to do.
Right, and what it sets out to do is to be a feature-length all-is-lost moment, which it succeeds.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that right now. It absolutely succeeds. Not only as delivering a gut punch of an ending, but also being a thrill ride up to that point.
Yeah, so just to break down the plot a little bit, the comparisons to Empire Strikes Back, I think, is also apt in the sense the movie has a very fractured cast, but you never feel like you are too far away from the action, And I think that I really like the way that they split up the cast because, with all these big crossovers, the main draw is always going to be which fun character interactions you want to get. Thor being with the Guardians of the Galaxy was a masterstroke.
Yes.
Thank God Taika Waititi reminded the folks at Marvel that, hey, Chris Hemsworth is fucking hilarious. Let him tell jokes. Yeah. And then you put him with arguably the funniest characters in the MCU.
Yeah. Rocket and Groot.
But yeah. And then you have, people had been clamoring for Iron Man Doctor Strange interaction ever since this Doctor Strange's movie got announced. And of course, we're using our made-up names is still a fucking meme.
Yep.
Which, for the record, that line got just as much a reaction in the theater as it did in the trailer. It's just Tom Holland's delivery was on point for that.
Oh yeah, he's amazing, and even getting to see Tony Stark interact with Star-Lord, which
that again, it's such. Here's the thing: it's the MCU. They're playing with very simple tropes here. It's all various variations of the straight man comic relief dynamic. But the fact that they have so many of each and so many characters that can be both ends of the dynamic is what makes it so work. Like I said earlier, it is a valid criticism of the MCU that everybody's a fucking comedian. But when characters like Tony Stark can be the comedian or the straight man depending on who they're interacting with. Again, that's not a super complex writing style, but the movie plays to that's its strengths, and I think that's what I'll have plenty of criticisms for the Russo brothers at the end of this, but one thing I'll give them credit for, and this is that they spend most of this movie playing to the MCU's strengths in a way that really does make this feel like a good celebration and culmination of it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that all comes to a head with the battle on Jupiter. Was it Jupiter or Mars that they fought Thanos?
That was the Ruins of Titan.
Ruins of Titan. Yeah, okay. Yeah, the Ruins of Titan fight where you see everyone in perfect synergy just working together, using their powers.
Yeah, and it still doesn't matter.
And it still doesn't work
all
because...
that for a drop of blood. Yeah. And of course, back on Earth still, you have Cap and Team Cap from Civil War meeting up with the Wakandans, which, I mean...
it is as epic as in the proper sense of the word.
I mean, Captain America showing up in that train station to rescue Scarlet Witch and Vision, I would liken that to John Cena entering number 30 at the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
That level of hype.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, Chris Evans with a beard and the long slick back hair is just unfair. I am sorry. I'm not even trying to be horny on main. I'm just being honest. I want there to be something wrong with Chris Evans because he legitimately comes across as too perfect.
Yeah.
That man needs to have a literal skeleton in his closet. Please. Please let him have, accidentally backed over his neighbor's foot with his car once. That is all maybe he paid a credit card bill late. That is what I am asking for. Show me a fucking scratch on that perfect fucking windshield.
Just keep grasping for those straws, man. Just keep grasping. Maybe you'll get it eventually.
I mean, at least Robert Downey Jr. had the decency for this to be his comeback. Chris Evans just started at the top of the fucking mountain.
Oh my god. I mean... Think of it this way. Just remember that he was in Not Another Teen Movie, which that movie actually wasn't that bad.
I mean, that was his breakout role. That's how perfect he is. That was his breakout role.
Oh, boy.
I mean, to be fair, all this is really just him, redeeming himself for those Fantastic Four movies.
Oh, right. Those existed. Yeah.
That's the best thing you can say about those movies. That they existed.
Yeah. I know we've talked all this about the action and the characters, but another scene I really want to talk about is that scene where it's just him and Gamora, where he spells out his entire philosophy there, and it's just, don't ask how I know this, but Thanos is one of the best written examples of an abusive asshole.
No, 100%, and I think two things make that scene work. Mm-hmm. First, like you said, it's a very clear-cut example of an abusive parent talking to their child who has grown up and is tired of their shit.
Right.
But also, the point of that scene is that Thanos' plan is obviously terrible. Gamora spells out all of the obvious flaws with it. The point of that isn't for Thanos to argue his point and make a reasonable case. The point is for him to fail to argue his case and show just how far gone he is, in my opinion.
Being a parent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of Thanos and Gamora... I do think we need to talk about the Soul Stone.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, a lot of people's biggest issue with that is the implication that an abusive parent or an abuser can love their victim enough that a cosmic force of energy can recognize it as a worthy sacrifice. I mean, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't want to claim to be an expert on this subject, but I mean...
Abusers don't know that they're abusers.
Right, but does the Soul Stone know that he's an abuser? I think that's the bigger question here. It's not a question of whether does Thanos actually love Gamora. It's a question of whether his idea of love should have been recognized as a worthy sacrifice. And I mean, I think it's worth discussing, would it have been a satisfying plot thread if he sacrificed Gamora and it didn't work? Where does the movie go from there?
Yeah, that's another thing.
I don't want to step on Film Rescue Show's toes too much, so I won't go too much into what they should have done differently.
Right.
Ultimately, that still is one of the most emotionally gut-wrenching scenes in the entire MCU.
Yeah,
and you can't take that away from them regardless of whether you like the execution or not. It is hard to watch.
Yeah, exactly, because it's what makes it is that it is drawn out to the perfect length, because the minute Gamora says, what's the line again? It's something about how...
really tears, and then his Red Skull... We'll get to Red Skull in a second. Red Skull's like, they aren't for him. And then she realizes...
Yeah. And it's of course I figured it out way before that.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing.
You're reacting to seeing Gamora figure it out, and you're just like, there it is.
Suspense at its best isn't the audience being surprised, it's the audience seeing the characters reach the same conclusion they just did.
Exactly, precisely.
On to Red Skull, legitimately one of the biggest fucking surprises and plot twists I've ever seen executed in a Marvel movie.
Right?
I mean, here's the thing. I'll say I was pretty online at the time, so like there are people who thought this might be a possibility because there was a pretty decent fan theory that Red Skull wasn't killed at the end of Captain America.
Ah, right.
But like the idea for him to show up there in that way, like how the hell did they not get that leaked?
I don't know.
Like, I'll talk about my spoiler opinions at the end of this, like on how they handle that, but I mean, well done on that at least.
Right, exactly.
Jesus, it's yeah. And that's the thing. So much of this movie, like, is payoff. That's the most important thing, is that, you know, you're paying off all of the time Tony spent developing the suit to the point where it's literally just nanites forming around him. You're paying off, you know, their dynamic with Black Panther from Civil War when the Wakandan army helps him fight Thanos' army.
Right.
You're paying off the father-son dynamic between Peter Parker and Iron Man.
Oh,
I mean,
and how?
Yeah. The amazing thing about this movie is how many highs and lows are basically overlapping. I mean, you have this scene with Thor arriving and meeting giant Peter Dinklage, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the whole forging the axe scene is brilliant, plus with Groot holding the burning metal together and chopping off his arm to make the handle.
Metal as fuck.
God, so to describe what it was like in the theater, Thor's entrance in Wakanda was the biggest pop I have ever heard, and then it cuts to Thanos showing up a Titan. Dead silence immediately. Whoa. It felt like someone hit the mute button on a football game. It was literally just the audience like, yeah! It's the immediate mood whiplash from holy shit, they're gonna win to holy fuck, they're gonna die.
Jeez. And speaking of dying...
Yeah, that was hard to watch. The snap is hard to watch. I will say this about the snap. A lot of people were saying, oh, you know, you shouldn't feel sad about the snap because we know all these characters are coming back.
The characters don't know that!
Yeah, the characters don't know that, and we don't know how they're going to come back. That's the thing. Because, like, we knew going into Endgame they were going to have to sacrifice a lot to bring these characters back. And also, it doesn't make it any harder to watch those characters die. Like, Bucky was just a kick in the dick for Steve. But then T'Challa?
Peter!
Dude, I was legitimately having a breakdown in my seat. Like, I was literally like, no, out loud in the theater while that was happening.
God.
I was not okay after that.
Neither was Tony.
Yeah.
And then Tony's reaction he literally asked Strays, why would you do that?
And he's like, we're in the end game now. Yeah, the thing with that is it's one of those things where it's like, oh my god, they died. Oh my god, they're still going. Oh my god, they died. Oh my god, they're still going.
I think Rocket is the only Guardian of the Galaxy who survives, isn't he?
Yep.
God.
I mean, and when we get into Endgame, we can talk a little bit more about whether the people they chose to have survive paid off. But I will say this. Ultimately, I think what something that kind of undercut it in this movie is that when they initially did like their big reveal of the timeline for Phase 3, Endgame's initial title was Infinity War. It was Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2.
Right.
If we hadn't known there was a Part 2 going into this movie, I feel like people would have had very different expectations. Because people went into this essentially knowing Thanos was going to survive and probably win to some extent, and then we'd have another movie to take him down.
Right.
I'll admit, people were going back and forth on whether the snap was actually going to happen, but the assumption was, you know, the Avengers were going to lose.
Right.
I don't think we realized the magnitude of that loss until it actually started happening, but I mean, those were expectations that maybe it would have been more beneficial if people didn't have.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And of course, the end credits scene with Nick Fury.
Oh, yeah. Which, thank God the guy next to me was nerding out more than I was, because I had no idea. It was my same reaction to the end credits scene in the original Avenger. I'm just like, okay, who's that?
Yeah, and, if you're not familiar with Captain Marvel's costume, you might have been a little underwhelmed by Nick Fury's pager. Yeah, I mean, it's not like you can put an S on there and people know who you're calling.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you just want to get into the ranking now, or is there anything else you want to...
I mean, it's platinum.
It's platinum, yeah. It really is.
I just called it one of the best movie theater experiences of my entire life. I'm not going to give it a silver after that.
Or gold. Or, hell, even gold would be debatable, but not platinum.
I mean, they know what they need to do when they knock it out of the park and leave you wanting more.
Yeah. I think this is only the one of 3 MCU movies that I've actually gone back and rewatched. Or maybe 4. Like, yeah, Avengers, this one, Winter Soldier, Ragnarok.
Guardians.
Guardians 2. Yeah. Oh, so 5. Well, yeah.
And of course, afterwards, after that repeated kick in the teeth, you need a little bit of a palate cleanser. And who better to do that than the Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yep.
Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of what I liked about the first Ant-Man, you can still say about this one, for better and for worse. It's a great family comedy with some good, dynamics and a decent amount of... Ultimately, the biggest strike against this movie is it doesn't do a lot to distinguish itself from the first one.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's another fun heist movie with the spin of them being on the run instead of, being having a base of operations.
Right.
I mean, the humor is brilliant. Again, Louis and Scott, two of the funniest characters in the whole MCU, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say, finally bringing in Janet Van Dyne, comic fans had a reason to be excited for this. I mean, bringing in the original Wasp, it's hard to say that to someone who's read a comic book and not have them get excited.
Right, because people who read the comics, the Wasp was one of the founding members of the Avengers.
Yeah. Also, hey, bringing in Lawrence Fishburne and acknowledging the existence of Goliath. That's a deep fucking cut. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne, ladies and gentlemen.
Lawrence Fishburne, yes. Oh my gosh.
And I mean, Hannah John Common as Ghost in this movie was a great villain.
Yes!
I wish people would talk about this movie before, because Ghost is a fantastic villain.
Yeah! You want to talk about villains who did nothing wrong? She's just trying to...
Literally just wants to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this movie, again, it does a good job of driving home the fact that Hank Pym, not a great person. The villains... very, how would I say, justified in not liking him.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the only sympathetic thing about him in this movie is that he cares about his family.
I mean,
and Scott a little bit.
Yeah.
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 I mean, ultimately, the only thing that kind of works against the movie is the pacing's a little weird. Yeah, the pacing's a little weird, and, it's meant to be, and it's a palate cleanser that canonically takes place before Infinity War. Yeah. So there's a feeling of, the good thing about the Ant-Man movies is that they're very self-contained, but, it's so low stakes that,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, low stakes, personal stakes are good, but, there's not a whole lot of tension until they actually get to the quantum realm.
Right, exactly.
The fight scenes are fun, but the characters never really feel like they're in danger.
Right.
Aside from, the few scenes where it seems like Hank Pym would die. Which, I mean, I legitimately thought for a second, he was going to sacrifice himself in the quantum realm to send Janet back. They really kind of set that up like a hero's final mission type thing.
Right, exactly.
I'm glad they didn't, because, I mean, Michael Douglas as Hank Pym is still a brilliant casting decision, and I love any time he's on screen.
Uh-huh.
And now we get to see him and Michelle Pfeiffer get to be a happy old married couple.
Oh my god.
Which Michelle Pfeiffer getting into the MCU just... Well done.
Yes.
Chef's kiss. Wow.
Yes. Yeah, it makes sense. And oh my gosh, and it's funny though, because you mentioned that they're a happy couple, and I think the scene that best illustrated that, ironically enough, was the scene that she wasn't in. It's the scene where Scott is channeling her.
Yeah, let's just talk that. I think talking about that is a whole review. Paul Rudd playing Michelle Pfeiffer playing Paul Rudd. I'm such a sucker for these scenes, but he does it so well.
God, it's so good.
The way they manage to balance the emotions, the serious emotions, and the pure ridiculousness of that is just Paul Rudd's fucking amazing. And the fact that Michael Douglas and Evangeline Lilly didn't completely break shooting that is amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, no, they do such, like you said, they have one scene where Michelle Pfeiffer isn't even on scene, and they establish that everything we've been led to believe about this family is true. They love each other and are happy and want to be together. There's no last minute plot twist where, she got turned evil by the quantum realm. She's blah, whatever. They don't need that. It's a happy family comedy, and all the families in this are happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, shit, they pretty much, when you mentioned Goliath, they pretty much just set up stature, didn't they?
Pretty much.
Oh, hell yes.
Yeah. 100%.
Jeez.
And I mean, again, talking about things that worked from the first movie, the child actress who played Cassie Lang.
Perfect.
I mean, I'm always amazed at child actors who manage to be on screen with such well-established stars and steal the show. But she's on screen most of the time with Paul Rudd, and he's not even the most interesting thing on screen at that point. She just, one of the most well-executed moral compasses in these movies, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not even a case where, the child is way too smart for any... It's she looks at things from a very childish point of view, but in a way that makes sense. It's a very black and white, my dad is trying to be the good guy and I should encourage him to do that thing. I don't think that's unrealistic.
Exactly, yeah.
Especially because, like, it's a good scene where, like, it reminds you how low the stakes actually are in a good way. Like, kind of waters it all down to, this is why you're a superhero.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's refreshing after having so many movies that question whether superheroes even need to exist to have one where the answer is just yes, and they're good at it, and I love them.
Yeah, and just be a good parent.
Yeah. Speaking of being good as superheroes, let's talk about Hope finally getting to put a suit on and get into the action.
Yes! Oh my gosh, all of the scenes, because you could tell just from each of her action scenes just how made for this she was.
100%. I mean, they said it in the first movie that she was really more qualified than Scott, and he was only there because he was expendable.
Right.
In this movie, you find out how outclassed Scott is.
Yeesh.
I mean, Wasp in this movie is not a sidekick. I cannot stress that enough.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, still one of the best lines is, so she has wings? I'm guessing that technology just, like, wasn't available for me. No, it was. Okay. Which, I mean, you could unpack why Hank didn't give himself wings then if you want to.
Oh, yeah. Huh. Food for thought.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Listen, all I will say is he's still a dick. I mean, the MCU loves to make its scientists terrible people.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Hank Pym in the MCU is still unequivocally a better person than he is in the comics.
Yeah.
For all his flaws, he is a wife guy. And I will not take that away from him.
Nope. So, yeah, with all that said,
one more thing we want to talk about this. Randall Park as Special Agent Jimmy Woo.
Of course! Oh my god, yeah. This is the movie with where he starts teaching him the card tricks, isn't it?
With the fucking, like, close-up magic.
Yeah. Hell, that whole house arrest opening
all
montage.
the house arrest scenes are great. And the fucking ant playing the drums.
I mean, it was in the trailer and it's still amazing.
I know.
Yeah.
And, I mean, chase scenes with tiny cars. Just chase scenes with tiny cars.
Never get old.
Nope.
Never get old. No. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think what you said is that ultimately it does kind of...
Ultimately, yeah, the biggest strikes against it is that it is so similar to the first one, and ultimately there's not a whole lot of tension until the big climax of the movie is Scott racing to get home in time to be home when his parole officer shows up.
Right.
Like, that's how low the stakes in this movie are.
Yeah. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a movie about a dad who wants to be a good dad to his kids.
Exactly. And so I'm willing to give it a silver.
Yeah, it's a silver. It doesn't quite surpass the original, but it's still fun to watch for a lot of the same reasons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now, moving on to Captain Marvel.
Now, let's get this out of the way right fucking now. We stan Brie Larson, okay?
Yes.
If you are unnecessarily harassing Brie Larson on the internet, I will find you.
Yes. Oh my god, that's just the thing about this movie. It was just so unfairly maligned on the internet, on the audience. This is why Rotten Tomatoes just as a whole just is not...
Would you say it's rotten?
Exactly. Yes. Like, I'm not even gonna chuckle at that.
Here's the thing. I have some criticisms about this movie, but I will talk about all the positive stuff first because I want it to be clear how much I love this movie. Carol Danvers is a great fucking character, even in the parts of the movie where she's not herself.
Right.
Like, the whole... Here's the thing. I love that they reached a point in the MCU where they're like, you know what? Let's just do Rashomon and make it sci-fi. Who gives a shit at this point? We're going to make $1.5 million off of this anyway.
Just $1.5 million?
Listen, I'm not good at thinking of big numbers, okay?
So, it's funny, you mentioned that you love this movie. I
mean, here's the thing.
I was kind of lukewarm on it, to be honest.
No, here's the thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it was a fantastic movie.
Of course.
I'm saying I loved it.
Exactly. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Like, Carol Danvers is like your standard loose cannon, I don't give a fuck, I just want to do the right thing character.
Absolutely.
She just doesn't know it because at the beginning of the movie, she's been brainwashed and she's just following orders that she's slowly learning to question.
Right.
Which is cool to see because, like, there's a lot of, they don't necessarily go for subtlety with it, but it's, I appreciate that to an extent.
Right.
Because the movie doesn't want you to mistake what it's saying.
Exactly.
I will say, so again, she plays the character very well, very charismatic and likable.
Yeah.
Carol Danvers is.
Like, even those tiny moments, like the part where she's fighting is it the Kree that she's fighting, or the Skrull?
She starts off fighting the Skrull, then she fights a Kree later.
Okay, when she's fighting, right, that's right, because she's part of the Kree when fighting the, okay, that part where she's fighting the Skrull and one of them roars at her, she roars back.
Right. Here's the thing. Carol Danvers is an asshole, but she's so likable. Like, she's no nonsense. I don't give a fuck. I will do what I need to do. And I love that. Because here's the thing. Yeah. And this is why this movie was unfairly maligned. You don't often get to see female leads be that kind of character. She's not likable because she's smiling and friendly and likes little kids. She does like little kids. But she's likable because she's a badass.
She's likable because, and I'm going to go straight to the positives with this one, because the main thing that I loved about this movie, she is able to outsnark Nick Fury.
Yeah, which, I mean, you understand why Nick Fury respects her so much in this movie.
I will never forget the tape scene.
God, that was...
You could have done that this whole time. You just sat there and watched me play with tape?
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll never forgive them for not giving us a Nick Fury Carol Danvers scene in Endgame. I'll get to that later. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so yeah, and I mean, the supporting cast is brilliant too. I mean, fucking Jude Law as the surprise villain, who, I mean, we knew going in he was probably going to be the villain. But like, I mean, he's plays his role so well. He starts off as such a good, he's the mentor who's kind of condescending, but in a way that makes you think he really cares. And it turns out he does care. He's just also an asshole and a war criminal.
Yeah.
I will say, as someone who was a fan of the source material in the comics, I actually did not see this twist with the Skrull coming at all. Like, in the comics, the Skrull are straight up, like, I mean, the Kree versus Skrull war is very much kind of both sides are evil type thing, but like, to outright make the Skrulls a sympathetic party was a ballsy fucking move, and I respect them for it.
Dude, yes.
Like, it was legitimately, here's the thing, it worked on comic readers, because literally there was that tension of like, are they just playing with her? Are they fucking with her? Is there going to be a twist at the end? And it's no, the Skrulls are now the good guys in the MCU. And I love the story potential there.
Yes!
And we've seen a little bit of it now, which we'll get to, but yeah, there's so much potential there. And I mean, and again, talking about the supporting cast, Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambeau. Oh. I mean, I don't give a fuck. She and Carol are a couple.
Yes.
I don't care.
Yes.
They're the fucking lesbian partners in the 90s raising their child together. You cannot change my mind. You cannot take that interpretation away from me.
Happy Pride, motherfuckers.
Right? Yeah, and I don't remember her name, but the child actress who played Monica Rambeau, just, again, like, the MCU somehow has mastered the art of finding child actors that steal a fucking show.
I mean, that's probably the Disney influence.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of their thing. But, I mean, again, it's similar with Cassie. She's not, like, absurdly intelligent, but she's a moral compass. Like, she convinces her mom, like, you're a square if you don't get in that fucking spaceship. She didn't say it like that, but that's what she said.
And then oh my god, the whole scene where Carol just keeps changing her suit over and over again just to entertain the kids.
It's literally just a video game customization menu.
That's exactly what it is.
It's like when you're XCOM and you're trying to find the decal that looks good on your new character. That's literally all that scene is. Or like substitute that with any other video game you've actually played that had customization. All right.
What was the cat's name again? I think it's Chewie in this one, or is it?
It was Goose.
Goose.
Because they named it after the guy from Top Gun.
That's right. That's right.
Chewie in the comics.
Right. Which, did you see that coming? Because I sure as hell didn't.
It being an alien?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. In the comics, the cat is an alien that just looks like a cat. It wasn't like the kind of alien it is in the show. I mean, in the movie.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't see it coming, but it was fucking hilarious, and I loved it.
Dude, I did not see that coming, so I just had I was one of those reactors where I was just so surprised that I just had a neutral look on my face, and then, wait, what? Huh?
Yeah.
What now?
It's like, I didn't process that. Can you do it again? Yeah. So I'm going to criticize a story choice. Okay. And then I'm going to criticize something about the movie, but not like about the story.
All right. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Kind of about the movie.
Yeah.
Okay. It's complicated.
Just say it.
Okay. First of all, fuck what they decided to be the reason Nick Fury lost his eye.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I get what you're going for, but that just doesn't work. Like, it's... I kind of like the idea of, it wasn't actually that dramatic. Like, I understand what you're going for, but, I mean, you had hyped it up so much beforehand, it just feels kind of... Like, it retroactively makes so many of Nick Fury's lines worse. Like, the line, the last time I trusted someone I lost an eye, just makes him seem like... I mean, yes, he is extremely dramatic. But it's just, like... That's what it's just like... really, Fury? Really? That's the angle you're going with this? It's like, again, like, I'm fine with it being something not very dramatic, but it literally being like, yeah, cat scratched my eye and it got infected. Like, really? That's what you went with?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But hey, like I said, I'm willing to forgive all of that because Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson just charisma their way through this whole movie.
And I mean, Captain Marvel literally turns into a Super Saiyan to destroy an entire fleet of starships single-handedly.
And of course it's all capped off with her just shutting up Jude Law's character.
Yeah, I love that final confrontation so much because like that's a good subversion of expectations. There's no dramatic final battle. She's like, no, fuck you. I don't need to prove anything to you. Get off of my fucking planet.
It's the next evolution of the Indiana Jones gun scene,
right?
Yeah.
Also, like, let's be fair. That is for lack of a better term, strong female protagonist shutting up her abusive male antagonist and shipping him off to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I mean, it's great. My one other criticism of this movie, and this is going to tie in some of the real life stuff around the movie, is we've touched a little bit on the connection between Marvel movies and the U.S. military, and no movie wasn't more, in my opinion, disgusting than this one.
Right.
Because here's the thing. Other movies, like, the military involvement mostly just in small script changes and funding, which, again, you are entitled to your opinion on that. I'm not going to tell you what to think about that because it's a complicated matter. One of the few things I legitimately believe is a complicated matter.
Right, exactly.
In this movie, they legitimately had an Air Force recruiting marketing campaign tied to this movie's marketing campaign. They had recruiting tables set up at showings of this movie. That I will not condone or approve of. That is exploitation of your audience. I mean, talking about making... Like, listen.
These are kids' movies.
Yeah, it's a kid... Like, yes, I fully support and encourage the feminist spin on your marketing. That is necessary and cool. But don't spin it into feminist Air Force marketing. That is gross.
Yeah.
And to bring that into the movie, here's the thing with Carol. She starts off fighting the Kree, believing they're fighting for defending themselves against the Skrull, who mostly are operating as terrorists.
Right.
Then she finds out in a twist, the Kree were the initial aggressors and the Skrulls are on the defense of being oppressed, and she realizes she's been fed propaganda. So she decides to be one of the good guys and join the U.S. military? Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, God.
The lack of self-awareness in that is, I'd say, mind-boggling, but it's kind of expected at this point. Like, the fact that she returns to Earth after being gone for so long and doesn't question anything about the U.S. military ostensibly being the good guys is like, you're unintentionally making your character stupid by not allowing them to respond to things realistically.
Right, yeah. But hey, we get a cameo of Stan Lee reading for his Mallrats cameo.
Right, I mean... As far as 90s references go, that was actually pretty clever. Can we talk about the amount of 90s references in this?
I mean, I am a child of the 90s, so yeah. So let's start with the
fact that the trailer opened with her crashing into a blockbuster.
Yes, that too. But and also, one of my little tiny criticisms of the movie is the "I'm Just a Girl" by No Doubt fight scene. I get what they were going for. That is not a fight scene song.
There were probably better songs they could have chosen for that scene that would have fit Carol's character better.
Yeah.
Like, I will say one thing about the music choice in this movie is it felt like they were just going for 90s nostalgia and not 90s nostalgia that makes sense for the character. Like, to compare it to the music choices in Guardians of the Galaxy, those songs also all have some kind of meaning for the characters and what's happening in the scene. There's not always a whole lot of connection between the song choice and the what's happening. Although I did like using Nirvana's "Come As You Are" in the Mindscape.
I was just about to say that.
With the Supreme Intelligence, that was fun.
Yeah.
Also, credit to them for going for Nirvana and not choosing "Smells Like Teen Spirit." That would have been a very easy. But they actually chose the song that Kurt Cobain actually liked.
I'm only happy when it rains. That was good too when they're driving to the to the Area 51. That's not actually Area 51, but you know.
Also, hey, young Coulson.
Yes, young. Oh yeah, the de-aging, which honestly looked better on Sam Jackson than Coulson. But
I mean, to be fair, they needed to age Sam Jackson a lot less than they did Clark. No offense to Agent Coulson.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's still look good.
He wears it well, but yeah.
And of course, his performance is spot on.
Oh, of course,
so,
yeah. I mean, if you hadn't been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. like me, it is very refreshing to have him back on screen and be reminded why you love him so much.
Ah, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
And of course, the after credits scene for this movie, I think.
Shoot, what was it again?
It's the one where you see the end of after the end of Infinity War with the Avengers with the pager and Carol shows up and asks where's Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sets things up nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you just saw what this woman is capable of, and Thanos just pissed her off.
Yeah. I will say, coming out of the movie, a lot of people seem to be under the impression like, oh, well, Captain Marvel's just going to show up and beat Thanos herself and the Avengers won't do anything. It's like, have a little bit of faith in the storytelling potential of these movies at this point, please.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on. I'm going to be completely real. If they went with Marvel in this movie, I don't think people would have been as like, oh yeah, he's just going to show up and kill Thanos. Like, no, he isn't. Nothing about his... The only, like, real criticism I have of Captain Marvel's personality in this movie is she doesn't have a whole lot of a character arc because she spends so long getting over her amnesia.
That is true.
Like, her biggest character growth is, like, remembering what her actual personality is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So, honestly, I'm going to go with silver.
Oh, it's a strong silver for me, but a silver nonetheless.
Right,
it's a silver that I really enjoy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, like, and let's be clear, silver's not a bad tier. A lot of good movies have been in silver tier so far.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't remember all of them because there are a lot of these fucking movies, but a lot of good ones are in there.
The first Thor is the one that came to my head. Because,
there.
Huh? All right, next one is...
We're in the end game now, baby.
Woo! Oh my god.
Man, let's talk about the expectations going into this one. Like, if Infinity War is crazy, I mean... This is literally, essentially, a series finale of 10 years worth of movies. I think finding a way to make this a satisfying ending was a monumental task, and the fact that they succeeded to the degree they did with as few flaws as they did is amazing.
And I like that you qualified with as few flaws as you did, but we'll get into that later.
Here's the thing. The fact they had as few flaws as they did and managed to satisfy as many fans as they did to the point that it is not generally accepted as a disappointing ending is a magnificent feat.
Right.
Because, remember, Endgame came out the same year that Game of Thrones ended. So we've seen what happens when a show doesn't end satisfyingly.
That's true. I completely forgot about that. Yikes.
Yeah,
Man.
I think like about a month or so after, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Anyway, let's jump right into it. So, the movie opens with us finding out why Hawkeye wasn't in this movie, and finding out why he's going to be in this, why he was in Infinity War, and why he's going to be in this one.
Right, because his family died, and he fucked off to become Ronin.
Yep. Which, I mean,
it is what it is.
It's the largest bit of character growth he's been allowed to show in any of these movies.
Yeah. It said something that when you said what this movie opens with, I was going to say Thor actually went for the head. But no, that happens after.
Then we get Castaway, Tony Stark, and Nebula in the Guardians ship. Probably going to die until Captain Marvel rescues them, brings them back to Earth. Loose Avengers reunion. And then they go track down Thanos and they kill him because he's weak and he destroyed the stones.
Yep, exactly.
And then a time skip of 5 years. Let's... Again, I don't want to step on the film rescue show's toes here, but I have mixed feelings about the choice to do a time skip.
Yeah, because part of the marketing was this movie's 3-hour length. Yeah. And then they go and do this.
My biggest problem with the time skip is too much happens during the time skip off screen. Like, here's the thing.
Jeez.
If there was, like, more, like, raw emotion and urgency in trying to undo the snap and get revenge on Thanos like there was at the beginning of the movie, that would be one thing. But when you have characters that have apparently spent 5 years adjusting to the end of the last movie and then they decide to come back and try and undo it, it feels a little jilted emotionally. I don't know if that's the right word. I've never used it in a sentence before, but that's how it felt.
Yeah, exactly.
This feels jilted. That's how I felt watching this movie.
It's a word now. We'll deal with it.
Yeah. English is a fucking joke.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, but, and... So, talking about character interactions, it is interesting to see how, Avengers kind of adapted. Like, we see a version of the Avengers with essentially Black Widow as the leader and Rocket, Captain Marvel, Okoye, Nebula, War Machine as the main people trying to just, deal with the blip, which I'll get into when we get to Far From Home, like the blip. But here's the thing. Like, the movie feels it's weird because the movie feels dystopian, but the dystopia is juxtaposed with the parts of the world that have moved forward. Yeah. Which is, in a post-pandemic world, maybe it's not that realistic that the world managed to move along as well as it seems to have in that movie.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say my biggest issue with the time skip is that we skip forward and all of a sudden we have Professor Hulk. Yeah. Here's my problem with that. That is the logical conclusion to Bruce Banner and the Hulk's character arc, and it happens off-screen during a time skip.
Which Fuck that, because you had an entire plot point in Infinity War where he was too scared to come out and fight Thanos. Yes, that's what that was. Fuck you, Russos.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah. I'm going to say also, before we get into anything else with this movie, this is the movie that made me sick of the Russos. The Russos had their heads so far up their asses when they made this movie. It's like...
Okay, thank you.
You do not need to re-explain every goddamn thing that happened in this movie. It's already 3 hours long. And, like, when your explanations apparently not only contradict the screenwriter's explanations, but what actually explicitly happened on screen, you just need to shut the fuck up, man. Shut the fuck up.
And don't cast yourself as the quote-unquote gay character.
Who shows up for 5 minutes, and the only indication that they're gay is a fucking pronoun. Anyway, let's talk about the parts of this movie I actually like.
Yeah, sure.
Here's the thing. Yeah. This movie ultimately functions really well as a culmination and a celebration of the MCU.
Yeah.
I will say this. Yeah. Up until literally the last 5 minutes, they do time travel well. They set up rules and they follow them. And they don't get too carried away with what they think they can accomplish with time travel in the confines of the narrative.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like, they give themselves limited resources to accomplish it. They have plenty of things that could go wrong. And it's almost a clip show, but a more it's an interactive clip show.
See, that's one thing that I really loved about it. It avoided the pitfall of just being a clip show, because we do get like some of the behind the scenes from the first Avengers, but
it's retroactive in a way that feels affectionate and not like it's blowing its own dick.
Exactly. It is just lovingly admiring America's ass.
That is America's ass. Jeez. Like, I do like, here's the thing. They kind of poke fun at things that the fans have been poking fun at for a while, like Cap's suit and that. But I mean, again, like, they highlight the parts of the things that got us to this point that we all loved. Like, the character dynamics are still great once Steve and Tony start getting along again. We'll get to Tony later.
Right.
You know, we get to interaction between Tony and his dad.
Yeah! Oh my god, which I don't care what anyone... Say whatever you want about the final battle, but that part is just my
highlight. That is
highlight.
Heart-wrenching. Just Tony Stark is now a dad giving his father retroactive fatherhood advice is like, oh, you wanted... Here's my heart. I didn't realize this was part of the price of admission. Also, fucking 70s a hippie Michael Douglas as young Hank Pym. Yeah. Just brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean... And the interesting yet... I approve of the choice to suddenly make the Dark World matter again.
Yeah, that was probably, objectively speaking, its most impressive feat.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, my biggest criticism of the Dark World is that it's entirely skippable, and this movie makes it matter for 10 minutes. Yeah. Speaking of which, are we going to get into Thor?
Listen, all I'm going to say about Fat Thor is that if you saw that and you saw yourself and you felt seen by how he coped with his depression, great. More power to you. I am not going to take that away from you. But you are lying to yourself if you want to say that his appearance wasn't meant to be a punchline at first impression.
Ultimately, like, I agree. There are a lot of people who felt represented by Thor, and I don't want to take that away from them.
Exactly,
But, you know, it's a matter of intentions versus execution versus impact. And if you look at intentions, they made Thor overweight because if they made him skinny, his depression wouldn't have been funny.
Yeah. You want to talk about theater reactions? Let me put it to you this way. There was, my theater laughed at Fat Thor. Me and one other guy cheered when Cap picked up Mjolnir. I feel like I got screwed, but, you know.
Yeah, no.
Not the movie's fault.
Cap picking up Mjolnir, for me, let me put it this way. I saw this movie in a theater in Alabama. I've been to a lot of Alabama football games. I would compare him picking up the Mjolnir to multiple game-winning touchdowns I have witnessed at Bryant-Denny Stadium.
God. Yeah.
That is amazing. Yeah. And that's the thing. There's so much payoff in this movie. Picking up the hammer is just like the tip of the fucking iceberg, but you could go on for days. T'Challa remembering Clint's name is like the fact that these movies can turn that into a great moment. Instant kill mode coming back.
Yeah.
God, that was so good. I mean... Yeah, let's just go ahead and say it. The portal scene, one of the most hyped scenes of all time. I would put it up there with the Charge of the Rohirrim in terms of holy shit, this is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And Cap finally saying Avengers Assemble.
Yeah. Whedon and Blue balled us long enough with that one.
Yeah.
Hot take, that scene would have been impactful even if he had said it at least once in each other movie.
True. Agreed.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to... Is there anything else you wanted to say about Thor, or just...
Not about Thor. Aside, it was nice to see him get that moment with his mother to remind you that that's a part of his character.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
show, like, he's been the funny guy for so many movies in a row. Give him, like, something to struggle with again and overcome it.
God.
I know a lot of people feel like his character arc in this movie contradicts what he did in Ragnarok. I think it really amplifies it.
Yeah, I'm about to say, well, I don't know where that's coming from.
Here's the thing. At no point in Ragnarok does he want to be the king. Part of the reason Ragnarok happened is because he fucked off instead of wanting to become king.
Exactly.
He literally only became king because he was the only option. And at the end, he decides, no, I finally have the ability to just go do what makes me happy, and that's be a frat boy with the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes, and I refuse to do this on the backs of the results of my father's genocide.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And, and so now I want to talk about Black Widow.
Yeah, okay.
Before we get... In a vacuum, I like what they did with her, but overall, it was a mistreatment of her character. Here's the thing. The fact that she was absent from the final lineup and the girl power scene is a kick in the face to that character.
Yeah.
The fact that she is the only original Avenger that doesn't make it to the final fight is a kick in the face. In a vacuum, the dynamic of that scene essentially being like Hawkeye once sacrificed a lot for her and now she's returning the favor so he can have the new life he gave her.
Yeah.
That's a good scene in a vacuum. But Black Widow had been treated so badly by the movies up until this point, like by Whedon's writing, honestly.
Yeah.
And Hawkeye had been such a non-factor aside from Age of Ultron that in hindsight, it doesn't really feel earned.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
also, one thing I'm glad they cut from this movie, they were going to reference that you think you're the only monster on the team line by having post-time skip a widow be running an orphanage.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's why we have editors.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crisis averted, to say the least.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about how Hawkeye apparently sacrificed a lot for Black Widow, is like, right when you said that, I think to myself, so what you're saying is that it would have been better if Black Widow maybe came out before Endgame, but...
Yeah, well, I was going to say, like, and it's part of the reason why I think there's a very muted reaction for the Black Widow movie, which I don't know that it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be a perfectly serviceable MCU movie.
Right.
But, like, it's it takes place between Civil War and Infinity War, and it's a solo movie. You waited so long to give your first female main character a solo movie, you killed her off before you actually got around to it.
Yeah.
I will say this about Marvel. You all had to wait for DC to make a good Wonder Woman movie for you to decide it was worth making a Black Widow movie, and I'm not going to let anybody forget that.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah.
Like, at least show us Budapest, come on.
Why didn't we need to get a Black Widow Hawkeye movie before the first Avengers movie?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Two characters treated pretty badly by the script throughout the movies, ultimately getting a really emotional scene that in hindsight doesn't feel that earned, is what happened with the Soul Stone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I will say, speaking of the time travel thing, though, the fucking Ancient One coming back was a pleasant surprise.
Oh my god, that was amazing, and she wiped the floor with Hulk, and
like... And the fact that she apparently already knows about Stephen Strange because she's mentioned seeing into the future. Yeah. Man, that was... Yeah, the time travel scenes were all really well done.
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to let you talk about that because time travel is one of those things that just makes my brain
I will say, like, the only thing with this movie is that it left, Loki in that one time travel scene.
Yeah,
which, hey, timeliness, that first episode aired earlier this week. Haven't gotten around to seeing it yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what? Ultimately, it's time travel. Something has to go wrong. I will say, here's the thing with the time travel. It's kind of seems like more or less split universes. Kind of.
Yeah.
Like the idea being like if you remove an Infinity Stone, it creates a split timeline, but you get a split dark timeline, but you get rid of it by returning the stone to its original point. It lets them fuck with the past without fucking up the present in any meaningful way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, two character endings I'm going to criticize here before we go into the actual rating, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
First off, because we're talking about the time travel, Steve Rogers. If this movie had ended 5 minutes earlier, I would have liked the ending a lot more. I do not like him going back in time and staying in time for two reasons.
Ooh, okay.
First reason, the fact that he went back in time, stayed there, and showed up in the present completely contradicts the way they've been doing time travel up until that point.
Yeah.
If you wanted to have him stay back in time, I'm fine with the idea of him going back, staying in time, kind of. I'll get to that in a second. But, like, I say that a lot. I should just assume that I'm going to finish my sentences.
I mean, yeah. I mean, shit. That's basically the philosophy that this entire franchise is built on, right? We'll get back to that later.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. Like, if you just sent back a note saying that, hey, I'll come back when I'm ready, but I'm not ready yet, that's fine. But, like, I don't know. I do kind of like the imagery of old Steve passing the shield on to Sam.
Yeah, which you need it, which is why I was willing to let it go. It was like, okay, that's your gimme moment because...
The thing I don't like is that he stayed back in time with Peggy. it is a misuse of Peggy's character. Well, part of Peggy's character is that, there's more to her than just being Captain America's love interest. She had a whole life and a whole career of being a badass S.H.I.E.L.D. agent after Steve left. She had a family. Like, really want to pull time shenanigans with, like, oh, well, maybe it really was Steve the whole time and they just didn't show. Like, I don't give a fuck about that. Like, she had 2 seasons of a whole TV show that was about her moving on and being a badass S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and you just shadow over that just so Steve could get his girl.
Right.
Also, don't even let me get into unpacking what it meant that Steve was okay with living through the 60s again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I love Steve Rogers, but if someone tries to tell me he's racist because he decided to live through the civil rights movement again, I can't argue against that.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, like, only the white Avenger would decide that he liked going back in time and staying there.
I mean, true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
think I know who the second character is.
Yeah, Tony Stark. We mentioned it during our Iron Man 3 review. I think Iron Man 3 was a better ending for Tony's character than Endgame, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Tony's sacrifice was going to be heart-wrenching no matter what, because he's Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you decide to time skip and get him married and give him a child specifically to make his death feel worse is a dick move. Because here's the thing. You don't give your character a happy ending and then take it away from them for drama. Mm-hmm. Let your characters be happy. And that's my biggest issue with Marvel, is they refuse to let so many characters be happy.
Right.
Yeah. I'm fine with the snap happening the way it did. I just feel like it would have been just as impactful if you didn't have to worry about the fact that now his child is dying. And that's why I feel like the time skip was too long, is you let characters just so much that they actually lose more by fighting to undo the snap than they do by letting people stay dead. Mm-hmm. That's not a great moral position to put them in.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, the final battle is fucking amazing. I mean, it hits on all the right notes it needs to satisfy the fans who wanted to see a good tribute and closing to the movie. And I mean, it's, the finale of the MCU. I go back and forth between a strong gold and a weak platinum. I honestly think it's a gold.
I say silver.
I'll say this. If I had to rate it the day I left the movie theater, I would say platinum. But a lot of hindsight and rewatching it has made me lower to gold.
Exactly. One of the things, my biggest issues was that whenever people try to say that this is one of their favorite MCU movies, I immediately say, okay, what were Black Widow and Steve Rogers talking about over sandwiches? Honestly, another thing, it should have been Nebula who killed Thanos at the end. You think so?
I don't know. I mean, Iron Man's final farewell, getting the final kill on the main villain, like...
Okay, fair.
I mean, if it makes it feel any better, she did it in the comics.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. So with all that said, I think Endgame did what it set out to do. It tied up the character arcs for the original Avengers to varying degrees of success. Shows them passing on the mantles to a new generation of heroes, and ultimately, after 10 years, I think puts a pretty satisfying bow on the MCU, as far as the series finale goes.
Aren't you forgetting something?
What?
Far From Home.
Fuck, they're still going.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The MCU's junk food, and I have a sweet tooth, so
right.
I'm not complaining that I got another Spider-Man movie and I'm getting all these Disney Plus movies. But yeah, it's a series finale that ends up having to leave a lot of loose threads so that they can keep going. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But hey, Far From Home, ultimately, I'll say right off the bat, it tied up a lot of issues that I had with Homecoming and actually got me a lot more invested.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It actually moves itself away from a lot of archetypal high school problems by making it a field trip. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's a little annoying that we haven't really had a Spider-Man movie mainly taking place in New York with a fully competent Spider-Man, but the Europe set pieces are fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, even that whole ending scene where he's fighting all the drones, that is incredible.
It's not like a single shot hallway fight scene, but the spider sense being used to its full potential there with him fighting with his eyes closed is badass.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And I mean, again, this movie really amps up a lot of the Homecoming strengths with the cast and the character interactions. Mm-hmm. You have the dynamic between Peter and Aunt May just being, the cool aunt who's really just struggling to be a single mom. Mm-hmm. Ned's still one of the funniest characters in the whole series.
Absolutely.
Happy being there.
Yeah.
So, a great way for comic relief and a little bit of extra catharsis for Iron Man passing away. Well done.
Yes. Let Happy and Aunt May be happy.
Yeah. Even if it's not a long-term thing, let's just let them be happy. Yeah. They both have some shit to work through.
To say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll say this about MJ. I said in the Homecoming review, my biggest issue with her portrayal in Homecoming was they didn't really sell me on her as a potential love interest, and they nail that in the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Normally, secondhand embarrassment for me is a strike against the movie. This movie's secondhand embarrassment was so on point with the high school couples. I was like, oh god, this is too familiar. Oh god, stop! Ah! Yeah, no, like Ned and Betty Brant being that one gross, annoying couple for like 2 weeks.
Jeez.
Nail on the fucking head. I mean, Peter being completely incompetent at anything related to women. Again, perfect.
Yep. And it ended. Which I'm surprised Ned managed to end that amicably. That was a good choice.
Yeah, that's the least realistic part of the whole movie.
Yeah. Shit, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, yeah. So one thing we want to talk about before we get into the movie is this movie establishes the blip, the plot point that, you know, with everybody coming back after the snap, half of the population was 5 years older than the other half, and I mean the world is just kind of fucked up from that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that's part of why I didn't like the time skip as well. That just feels like an unnecessary complication to add into the rest of your storytelling. Yeah. I mean, they kind of shot themselves in the foot in terms of like what they can do with that.
Right.
I mean, but fortunately, it doesn't play that much of a role in this movie, though.
Yeah, exactly. Because everything you mentioned is just like what, the first 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah. Ultimately, a lot of this movie is about, you know, Spider-Man getting catharsis for Iron Man's death and trying to come into his own as a solo superhero.
It's an epilogue.
Yeah. This is very much the epilogue of Endgame.
Yes.
Yeah, which I will say the interesting thing about this movie's marketing cycle is that it had to start before Endgame came out. So people were, aside from people knowing Spider-Man and everybody else is going to come back, you know, the hype didn't really start until the first post-Endgame trailer came out and people realized what this movie was really going to be about. Because they didn't really show anything with Mysterio or the Elementals or anything like that until that second trailer. And then, of course, they couldn't show anything dealing with Iron Man's death until then either.
Exactly.
Yeah. It showed a very different movie at that point and people finally started getting interested. Yeah. I will say, you know, I mentioned Mysterio. Let's talk about Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio.
Yeah, which... Talk about out of left field casting, but I dig it.
Yeah, no, it works really fucking well. And I mean, here's the thing, like, people who are familiar with the comics knew going in Mysterio was a villain. It wasn't a plot twist.
Right.
But I saw a lot of people who didn't expect that, who actually were surprised by it. Or at least, like, the movie executes it well enough that whether you knew or not going in, it still works out well.
Yeah, exactly, because I love what they did with his illusions.
Right.
Because they made him a disgruntled former Stark employee, and he just, well, did he steal the technology, or did he just take back the technology that he had developed the technology, and Stark just took the credit for it, so he was taking something like that. Yeah.
I mean, how fitting that the movie that is essentially therapy for Iron Man's death features one of the final villains who have been directly caused by his Tony Stark.
By his Tony Starkness. You could say it's a stark contrast. Oh God! Ow!
I will say though that the one part of the movie that I really didn't like is the whole Edith thing.
Edith thing?
The sunglasses that control the drones.
Jeez.
Like apparently Tony Stark didn't learn his lesson at all with Ultron.
Yeah, apparently.
And apparently a 16-year-old having access to that technology is the happy ending.
Don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
Hey, look, he's fighting drones. Wait, he's interacting with Nick Fury. Yay! Who is acting suspiciously out of character for some reason. I wonder what that could...
Weirdly incompetent Nick Fury for some reason. I did love the little scene where they're like, can you ask any other Avengers to help? And it's just a constant string of nope.
Yeah. Which, I like that they were managed to turn, like, why don't you call the Avengers, other Avengers into a running gag now.
Yeah. Like, I mean... If you have a problem in your movies that you can't really fix without fucking up your movies, at least turn it into a running joke.
Exactly.
Yeah, like they even did that in Ant-Man, where like they explain their plan. They're like, okay, I think the first thing we should do is call the Avengers. Yeah, and I mean, again, the fight scenes are all great. You know, a good mix of set pieces to show off Spider-Man's various powers.
Yeah.
He gets hit by a train at one point. That's rough.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, like I was saying, talking about fixing my issues with Homecoming, this movie actually does a really good job of demonstrating the conflict between the Peter Parker and Spider-Man aspect of his life, even if it was a little heavy-handed.
Right.
With the Spider-Man part of his life being literally personified by Nick Fury tracking him through Europe.
Jeez.
Instead of it being, a more metaphorical sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Nick Fury, you want to talk about the Skrulls being in this?
Yeah, let's talk about the Skrulls being in this and what that means.
That was. We'll talk about the two after credits scenes. This one first. I remember, like, coming out of Endgame, a lot of people were a little sour in the MCU just because they're like, well, where do you even go from there? The two end credit scenes for this movie immediately erased those doubts for me because it showed they were still willing to take chances and be insane with their storytelling choices.
Oh my god,
So, like, with the Skrulls, first, and Nick Fury being in space working on a space station, super fucking cool implications for that.
Yeah.
But also the explanation that apparently this whole movie just happened because the Skrulls are not very good at being Nick Fury.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but yeah, the knowledge and how Skrulls are on Earth, like, working with Nick Fury and the remnants of S.H.I.E.L.D. to do stuff is definitely has a lot of ramifications.
Oh my god, yeah.
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 Yeah. And, I mean, the other after credits scene, which, I mean, fucking J. Jonah Jameson with the original actors showing up and revealing Peter's identity.
Because Iron Man connection.
I mean, like, where the fuck, like... They basically just said, no, we're not doing traditional Spider-Man. We're going balls to the fucking wall with this.
Oh my god, yeah, which is why I just hope that they don't cop out and just have him be a Skrull just to show, like, oh no, he can't
here's the
be...
thing, that's such an easy solution. It's like, oh look, Skrull, Peter Parker and Spider-Man in the same room. Like, I mean, they did stuff like that in the comics, and it's like, if they have such an easy solution, it's almost ridiculous if they don't do that.
Yeah, true.
Except apparently the Skrulls might not be interested in helping Peter.
That's...
And he also doesn't know Skrulls exist.
Oh shit, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Part of the interesting thing about that is, like, the unknowing of, like, okay, where are you going with this? It's okay to not know where they're going with this and be interested in it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Because let's just face it, this is just the beginning of Young Avengers.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Endgame did the time skip to, age Cassie up. You have young Peter Parker here. I mean, future movies are going to set up Kang the Conqueror. The Loki series might end with us getting young Loki. I mean, you're getting a bunch of younger characters.
Yeah, and we still have that Kamala Khan.
Yep, Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
And, yeah. I mean, also with Mysterio, he might still be alive.
True.
Yeah, for people who didn't see this when the movie came out, yes, Mysterio seems to die in the movie, but Jake Gyllenhaal ended up tweeting out behind the scenes of photos that seem to show that there is a scene where like when Peter Parker returns home and is going home with Aunt May, Jake Gyllenhaal is in the background in, like, civilian clothing.
Ooh.
So, yeah, it seems like they might be having Mysterio come back.
Oh.
Or maybe they're just fucking with us.
Who knows?
Dun dun dun. Also, yeah, MJ and Peter Parker are legitimately a good couple in this.
Of course.
Like, I can count on one hand the number of couples in the MCU that are done well, but they're one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And, yeah, so that's where the MCU last left off, and I mean, then the world ended a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just before we transition to that, though, I'd say this movie, gold.
Yeah, gold. Like, legitimately one of my favorite Marvel movies. I haven't watched it as much as the other ones, but, like, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's excellent. And, I don't know, also, I really, another point about the whole revealing the secret identity thing is just like, it's just like, in the age of social media, just secret identities are just not...
Yeah, the MCU's almost never really done secret identities anyway.
That's
for any of their main characters.
So, yeah.
And of course, moving into the future of the MCU, number of movies on the slate to finally come out now that, vaccines are going out. We are starting on the third Disney Plus series with Loki. Falcon Winter Soldier and WandaVision already came out. I mean, you haven't seen them, have you?
No, I have not.
I've seen them. All I'll say is that WandaVision, one of my favorite things in the MCU, because it's one of the few things that feels like it has actual artistic vision behind it.
Nice.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, honestly, was like kind of middle of the road for me. Couldn't really decide what it wanted to be, and it kind of suffered from doing everything at once. I haven't gotten around to starting Loki yet, but I'm hearing interesting things about it. So
oh my God,
we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah. Ultimately, I'm looking forward to continuing to enjoy superhero movies.
Yeah, we'll see what they do with the Eternals. That trailer looked interesting.
I'm just enjoying all the memes that are like, where the fuck were you guys?
They were... The vibes that I got from the trailer is that they're like the Greek gods. They just see what's going on. They're just like, oh, shame.
Yeah.
Popcorn.
It's like, long have we waited, but now it's time to reveal ourselves and defend the Earth. Tony Stark's Halograde. Long have you fucking what now? Excuse me?
And then Kumail Nanjiani cuts his head off with his jawbones.
Dude, I fully welcome our new overlord, buff Kumail Nanjiani. Between Eternals and Green Knight, I think this is the year of buff brown superheroes, and I'm all for it.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yes. Yeah.
Also, hey,
yeah.
maybe Robb Stark and Jon Snow will finally get their post Game of Thrones breakout they've been looking for.
Yeah. 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 We could hope.
Yeah. I mean, also the movie has the Gemma Chan and Angelina Jolie, so I mean,
Because
literally nothing else matters other than that. That's your star power right there.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So optimistic about the future, huh?
I'd say so.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
One thing I will say though is that definitely don't feel bad if you can't keep up with everything the MCU does post Endgame, because there's going to be a lot.
Yep. Content machine go. Brrr.
Yeah. But I mean, I also don't think there's anything wrong with enjoying a franchise. Like, you're not a better or worse moviegoer for looking forward to, like, incarnations of an established franchise. Like, fucked film Twitter, basically.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I can
Yeah.
enjoy junk food and enjoy sirloin steak.
And you're not like more or less of a foodie.
Yeah, exactly. You're not a bad film fan for saying, yes, I do like the MCU, and I would like to see more MCU movies.
I'm pretty sure Emerald would order pizza once in a while. That's all. Just saying.
I appreciate you choosing that, Chef, for your analogy.
Oh boy. All right. So yeah, I think until more superhero movies comes out, and once we get back into theaters, to all of our listeners, thank you for busting a line with us.